Far out along one arm of the night, in the part of the sky the old stargazers drew as a great hound following a hunter, a single ember burns the colour of cooling iron. It is not white, not yellow, not the brisk blue of the stars you might picture first. It is deep red. The red of the last coal in a hearth long after the room has gone dark, and it is so enormous that if you set it down where the sun now sits, its glowing surface would swallow the small inner worlds whole and reach outward, out past the rust of Mars, out across the wide cold gap, until its faint edge brushed somewhere near the rings of Saturn. A star you could pour the entire heart of the solar system into and still have room. Hold that for a moment, the way you would hold a warm stone in your palm. This ember has a name that sounds like a quiet incantation when you let it move through the mind without effort: VY Canis Majoris. There is no need to grip that name, no need to memorize a single number tonight. Let the syllables pass through you the way warm water passes over the hands. The mind does not have to chase anything here. It can simply float on the surface of these ideas and let them carry their own weight. What stays with you by morning will be exactly what was meant to stay. What slips away was never a burden in the first place. You're allowed to be a guest in this knowledge rather than its keeper. Breathe out and let the shoulders come down from wherever they have been holding themselves all day. The light reaching your eyes from this place is old. It set out across the dark roughly 39 centuries before it arrived, which is to say, it began its crossing while the Great Pyramids were still young and the first cities were learning to write their names in clay. Every photon that finally grazes the edge of Earth tonight is a messenger from a time before nearly everything you know, and it has been travelling, uninterrupted, through the silence between the stars for all the years in between. To look toward VY Canis Majoris is to look down a long corridor of time and see a candle that was lit before history had begun. Astronomers measure that corridor at about 3,900 light years, set within the constellation Canis Major, the Great Dog. The brightest jewel of that constellation is Sirius, the brilliant blue-white star that wheels low over winter skies and has guided travellers and farmers for thousands of years. But Sirius is a near neighbour, only a little over 8 light years away. The red ember lives far behind it, deeper into the galactic dark, hundreds of times more distant. A faint and ancient lantern hung at the back of the same picture. 2 stars in the same hound, one almost close enough to touch, one almost beyond imagining. People have known of this faint red point for a very long time without knowing what it truly was. It was first written into a star catalogue more than 2 centuries ago by an astronomer in France charting the heavens of the southern sky, recorded then as nothing more than a dim and unremarkable speck, one entry among thousands. Only much later, as instruments sharpened, did its true nature unfold, until the ordinary little mark in an old ledger revealed itself to be among the most extraordinary stars ever found. There is something gentle in that, a thing of unimaginable grandeur waiting quietly in a list for generations, in no hurry to be understood. The great dog that holds it is one of the oldest pictures the human eye ever drew in the stars. For thousands of years, across many lands and many tongues, that bright cluster low on the winter horizon has been seen as a hound, a faithful companion trotting at the heel of the hunter Orion as he strides across the dark. Sailors steered by it, farmers marked their seasons by its rising. The brilliant star at its heart announced the hottest weeks of the year, and all that time, unseen behind the bright eye of the dog, the great red giant hung in the same patch of sky, far beyond, waiting in the dark for eyes that could finally find it. In the catalogue of stars sorted by their colour and heat, this one belongs to the coolest, reddest class, the kind labelled with the letter the astronomers reserve for the embers of the sky. Stars are sorted along a spectrum from the fiercest blue-white down through white and yellow and orange to the deep, cool reds, and VY Canis Majoris sits near the very bottom of that warm slope, a star whose light is steeped in red the way the sky steeps in colour at the close of day. Its place in that ordering is a place of rest, the cool and ruddy end where stars glow longest and softest before they let go. The colour itself is a kind of temperature you can almost feel. A star this red is, by stellar standards, cool. Its surface simmers at roughly 3,500 degrees, which sounds like an inferno and is, yet it is gentle compared to the blue-white fury of younger, smaller suns that blaze at tens of thousands of degrees. Cooler stars glow redder, the same way a fire fades from white-hot to orange to a soft, sullen crimson as it settles for the night. This is a settled star, banked low, radiating the long red warmth of something near the end of its burning. And yet, cool as it is staggeringly bright. Pour all its light together, every wavelength the eye can see and the vast amount it cannot, and VY Canis Majoris shines with the strength of something on the order of a few 100,000 suns. Most of that radiance pours out not as visible glow, but as infrared, as heat, the deep, slow warmth that night vision and special telescopes are built to feel. If your eyes could drink in that hidden warmth, this one star would flood the heavens, a furnace wrapped in red velvet, pouring out in a single heartbeat more light than our entire sun releases across a long stretch of years. Most of that immense radiance never touches human sight at all, for it streams out as infrared. The warmth your skin feels from a fire even with your eyes closed. If you could see in that band the way certain cameras and telescopes are built to, this star would blaze across the heavens as one of the brightest things in the sky. A furnace of warmth where the eye finds only a dim red speck. There is a whole hidden brilliance to the universe, an ocean of warmth pouring through the dark that the human eye was simply never made to catch, and this star is among its grandest sources. So much of what shines most brightly is felt rather than seen. The way astronomers reckoned its enormous size is itself a quiet marvel of indirect knowing. They could not lay a ruler against it, of course. Instead, they measured the faint angle the star spans in the sky, smaller than a coin seen from across a continent, and combined that sliver of angle with the known distance to work out the true width. From a whisper of angle and a long reckoning of distance, the full colossal radius emerged, a number wrung from careful measurement of things almost too small and too far to measure at all. The grandest dimensions in the cosmos are often pieced together from the faintest of clues by minds willing to reason carefully across the dark. To call it large does not reach far enough. Its radius is something close to 1,400 times the radius of the Sun. That number refuses to fit inside the ordinary imagination, so let the body of it arrive slowly instead. The Sun is already a thing you cannot truly hold in the mind, a sphere into which more than 1,000,000 Earths would fit. Now take that impossible sphere and stretch it outward until it is more than 1,000 times wider still. A grain becomes a cathedral, a marble becomes a mountain. Somewhere in that swelling, every familiar measure quietly surrenders, and what remains is simply vastness, soft and red and silent. The light you receive from this place tonight is, in the truest sense, a message that has outlived its sender's every passing mood. In the long centuries the beam was crossing the dark, the star itself went on living, dimming and brightening, breathing out new shells, perhaps changing in ways no one will know for ages. The light in your sky is a single old photograph of a moment long gone, faithfully developing only now. Every star you have ever seen is like this, a portrait of the past, and the farther the star, the deeper into history you are gazing. To look up at all is to look backward in time, into a gallery of moments that have already slipped away. There is a tenderness in measuring such delay against the small delays of ordinary life. Sunlight needs only minutes to reach you, the light of the moon, barely more than a moment, the glow of a lamp across the room, no time you could ever notice. But the light of VY Canis Majoris has been on its way since before the oldest written word, since before the wheel was common, since before most of the cities of the ancient world were even imagined. Hold those two facts side by side, the instant lamp and the millennia-old star, and feel the whole vast range of distance the night sky quietly contains, from the near and immediate to the unthinkably far. A star this swollen offers no place a foot could ever rest. Its outer layers are not solid or even liquid, but a thin, hot, glowing gas, so rarefied that there's nothing there to stand upon, no ground, no surface, only a deepening red haze that grows denser as you imagine descending and never once becomes a floor. A star is not a world, it is a fire with no shore. The very idea of arriving at it, of touching down, dissolves into the realization that there is nothing to touch, only light and heat and thinning gas all the way down. Even the larger star is in the end made mostly of glow and emptiness, holding its great shape by nothing firmer than its own slow gravity. Here is a way to feel that size in your own bones. Light is the fastest thing there is, crossing the gap from the sun to the Earth in about 8 minutes, and circling our whole planet several times over in the space of a single second. Yet to travel from one side of VY Canis Majoris to the other, that same unhurried beam of light would need something like 6 hours, a whole working day, just for light to cross a single star. You could fall asleep at one edge of it and wake at the other, and the light that left with you would only now be arriving. There is something restful in a thing so large that even light must take its time within it. The volume of such a star is the kind of number the mind politely declines to hold. If the radius is 1400 times the sun's, the space it fills is that number multiplied by itself 3 times over, which works out to billions of suns poured into the volume of this one star. You could empty more than 1 billion of our own suns into the space VY Canis Majoris occupies, and they would vanish inside it like sand into a quarry. Do not try to grasp the figure, simply let it open out beneath you like a sky, vast and soft and impossible to fall to the bottom of. A small model helps the body feel what the number cannot. Shrink the sun to the size of a single grape resting in your palm. On that same scale, the Earth would be a barely visible speck of dust circling a few steps away, and most of the familiar planets would be small grains scattered across a room. But VY Canis Majoris, shrunk by the very same amount, would be a glowing red sphere wider than a tall building, rising several stories into the air, dwarfing the whole little model of our worlds. A grape and a tower, the same kind of thing, separated only by how much fire each one gathered up. Imagine, for the slow pleasure of it, trying to fly around this star the way an airliner circles the Earth. A jet that can loop our whole planet in a day or two would need, around the body of VY Canis Majoris, something like 1,000 years to complete a single circuit, droning on through the red glow century after century, while empires rose and fell on the small world it left behind. The circumference of this star is a journey no machine could ever finish in any human span. Some distances are not meant to be crossed, only marvelled at from very far away and then set gently down. Such a giant does not sit neatly. It is a red hypergiant, one of the rarest and most extreme kinds of star known, a category reserved for only a handful of the most swollen suns in the catalogue of the sky. Most stars live and die without ever reaching anything like this. To become a hypergiant, a star must have been born enormous, perhaps tens of times the mass of the Sun, and then must age into a phase of tremendous bloating, its outer layers expanding into a tenuous, glowing immensity. VY Canis Majoris sits near the very ceiling of how large a single star can be, before it can no longer hold itself together at all. Even among its own rare kind, this star stands tall. You may have heard of Betelgeuse, the ruddy shoulder of Orion, a red giant so large it would swallow the inner planets if set in the Sun's place, famous enough to be named in countless tales. You may have heard of Antares, the red heart of the Scorpion, another swollen giant glowing in summer skies. Both are immense, and both would be utterly engulfed inside VY Canis Majoris, which is larger still, one of the few stars known to climb even higher than those familiar giants. It belongs to a tiny company of the very largest suns, the handful that sit at the uppermost edge of size, and it has long been counted among the grandest of them all. Its surface, were you to read its light through a prism, tells its cool red story in the language of chemistry. Threaded through the star's spectrum are the dark signatures of molecules that can only survive in a relatively cool stellar atmosphere. Bands of titanium oxide and other compounds that drink in particular colours and deepen the red. Hotter stars are too fierce for such molecules to exist at all. Only in the mild outer air of a cool red giant can they form and leave their mark. The very redness of the star is written in a molecular hand, the fingerprint of a surface gentle enough for delicate things to hold together. Because it sits so near that ceiling, the star is restless in a slow and constant way. It is shedding itself into space, sloughing off its own outer skin in great breaths of gas and dust, far more lavishly than the sun ever will. Where our sun lets slip only the faintest whisper of itself on the solar wind, this red giant exhales whole oceans of material, building around its own body a luminous fog of its own making. The star is, in a sense, slowly setting itself free, releasing into the dark the very substance it spent millions of years gathering in. It does not cling. It lets go in long glowing sighs, and goes on shining all the while. Wrapped around that fading furnace, then, is a nebula unlike the smooth round shells some stars cast. This one is wild and asymmetric, full of strange arcs that curl away from the star like ribbons caught mid-throw, and bright knots and clumps where the cast-off material has gathered into denser drifts. Telescopes that can resolve fine detail have traced loops and jets and flung out filaments, frozen mid-gesture, as though the star had been writing in a language of light and dust, and then stepped away from the page. Each arc marks an old outburst, a moment centuries or millennia ago when the star sighed harder than usual and flung a curl of itself into the night, where it still hangs, faintly glowing. The sharpest portraits of those arcs came from a great telescope orbiting high above the Earth's blurring air, and from instruments on mountaintops built to freeze the shimmer of the atmosphere. Through them, the tangled shroud resolved into clumps and loops and a bright curving plume, each lit from within by the buried star, each rendered in fine detail across the light years. Astronomers gave the brighter features their own quiet names, mapping the cloud as a cartographer maps a coastline. A place no eye will ever visit has been charted curve by curve, the way you might trace a familiar shoreline in the dark from memory alone. Out in the cooling shroud, certain molecules do something that turns the star into a faint radio beacon. Where the conditions are just right, clusters of water and other simple molecules amplify radio light among themselves and send it streaming outward in concentrated beams, natural glints scattered through the cloud, the cosmic cousins of the lasers built in laboratories on Earth. Radio telescopes pick up these tiny brilliant points like sparks in fog, and by mapping where they shine, astronomers chart the slow currents of gas drifting away from the star. The silent cloud, it turns out, is quietly singing in a register no ear could hear, only the great dishes can. The light scattering off the dust in that shroud comes back faintly polarized, its waves combed into alignment by the act of bouncing off so many tiny grains. By reading that subtle ordering in the light, astronomers can map where the dust lies thickest and how it is arranged around the star, teasing out the three-dimensional shape of the cloud from the way it tidies the light passing through it. Even the manner in which the starlight is gently arranged on its way out carries a message, a whole hidden geometry written into a property of light the eye cannot perceive at all. The cosmos keeps many of its records in inks invisible to us, and patiently, we are learning to read them. The dust grains in the inner shroud are warm to the touch of an instrument, glowing at a temperature far below the searing surface, but far above the deep cold of open space, somewhere in the range of a mild oven, radiating that heat outward as the infrared shine that the cloud is famous for. Move outward through the shroud and the grains cool by degrees, the warmth fading with distance the way it fades as you step back from a fire, until at the trailing edges the dust is barely warmed at all. The whole cloud is a vast gradient of gentle heat, warmest near the buried ember, and cooling outward into the dark, a hearth glow spread across a region. Light takes the better part of a year to cross. The strangest thing about this immensity is how little there is of it, for all its width. A star so puffed up, spread across so enormous a volume, becomes extraordinarily thin. Its outer layers are more rarefied than the air you're breathing now by an unthinkable margin. In places, those reaches are emptier than the finest vacuum a laboratory on Earth can engineer. You could imagine sailing for a long while through the swollen outermost edge of this star and meeting almost nothing at all. A red mist so faint it barely deserves the word substance, glowing only because it is steeped in the heat of the buried core far below. The largest things, it turns out, are often the most delicate. The mind can rest in that. It is a giant made mostly of light and emptiness, holding its shape by the gentlest of margins, and it will not hold that shape forever, which is not a sorrow, but a far and distant grace. A star of this kind is living out the final chapters of a life that has already run for millions of years, and far in the future, on a timescale so long it makes a human lifetime feel like a single blink. It will reach the end of its burning and let go completely. When that happens, it will likely flare as a supernova, or something even grander, a brief and brilliant beacon, and then settle at last into the deepest quiet of all, very probably collapsing into a black hole, a small dark seed left where the great red giant used to glow. The ending is real, but it is unimaginably far off, beautiful rather than fearful, and nothing in it reaches toward you here in the warm dark. The star is simply doing what stars do, in its own enormous and unhurried time, while you rest. The time scale of that distant ending is so vast it lifts the whole matter entirely out of the realm of worry. Not tomorrow, not in 1,000 years, not in any span a human mind can meaningfully fear, but in an unimaginable reach of future time will the great red giant come to its close. By every measure that touches a human life, the star is simply a constant, a fixed warm light that will outlast you and your grandchildren's grandchildren many times over. Its eventual transformation belongs to a future so remote it is almost a different kind of time, and nothing of it casts any shadow on the warm dark where you rest tonight. And even when that far-off ending comes, it will be, from this distance, only a gift of light, never a danger. The space between the star and the Earth is so enormous that no possible event at the star could reach across it to trouble this small blue world. The gulf itself is a perfect shelter. A great fire burns on a hill so impossibly far away that only its glow can ever reach you, never its heat. You may hold the thought of the star's eventual end the way you might hold the thought of a sunset, as something beautiful and far away and entirely safe, asking nothing of you but a moment's quiet wonder. Settle into that thought the way you settle into a familiar bed. Out there, 3,900 years of empty space away, a red ember the width of a planetary orbit hangs in the night, breathing out rings of glowing dust, taking 6 hours to let its own light walk across it, asking nothing of you at all. It does not need to be watched to keep shining. It will go on whether your eyes are open or closed, so you may close them. The nebula that cloaks this star carries a name as soft as the thing it describes. Astronomers sometimes speak of the shroud around VY Canis Majoris, and the word fits, for the star wears its lost material like an immense luminous garment, loosely draped, trailing at the hem. Within that shroud, the cast-off dust is not idle. The tiny grains scatter and absorb the starlight, glowing faintly in the infrared, so that the whole region shines with a banked warmth, a hearth glow spread across light years. If you could stand within it, the sky around you would not be black but a deep ember red, lit from no single point but from everywhere at once, the entire heavens softly aflame. Those dust grains themselves are a marvel small enough to balance the star's immensity. They are minute, far finer than the dust that settles on a windowsill, mere specks of silicate and metal and carbon condensed straight out of the cooling gas the star exhales. Yet specks like these are the raw material from which whole worlds are eventually built. In some far-off age, in some far-off place, dust of just this kind gathers and clumps and warms and becomes rock, becomes planets, perhaps becomes the floor beneath some future creature's feet. The grains drifting away from this dying star are seeds. What the star releases as it fades, the universe quietly keeps and uses again. The whole shroud is enormous, stretching across a region many thousands of times wider than the distance from the Earth to the Sun. To cross it, light needs not minutes but a good fraction of a year, threading its way through the loops and arcs and the long-flung filaments, and all of it was once inside the star. Every wisp of that immense cloud was, not so long ago in the unhurried reckoning of suns, part of the body of VY Canis Majoris itself, layers it has breathed out into the cold. Imagine a single sigh so vast it becomes a country of mist. The star is exhaling itself into a landscape, and the landscape glows. To cross the entire shroud, that immense cloud of cast-off material, light itself needs the better part of a year, travelling from one trailing edge through the loops and knots to the far side while a whole turn of the seasons passes on Earth. A spring, a summer, an autumn, a winter, and only then has the light finished crossing the cloud a single star has breathed out. The numbers fold time and distance together until they soften past grasping, and that is fine. You need not hold them, only let them widen the dark around you, opening the night into something far larger and stiller than any room. The star may once have had company, a sibling or companion born from the same cloud, for the most massive stars often form in pairs or clusters rather than alone. Whatever its earliest history, it now keeps its long vigil without a close companion, a solitary giant in its corner of the sky. There is a whole hidden biography behind every star, a story of birth and youth and slow change reaching back millions of years, most of it forever beyond our knowing. We catch only this single late chapter, the red and swollen present, and must imagine all the fierce blue ages that came before. Picture the star's light not as a steady stream, but as an enormous heartbeat of warmth, pulsing outward across the ages, each beat a year of brightening and dimming, each pulse spreading into the dark. A heartbeat so unhurried that one full rise and fall takes longer than a human generation, yet a heartbeat all the same, the deep rhythm of a living, changing star. Let your own pulse soften toward that enormous slow rhythm, your breathing lengthening, your heart easing, your whole body slowing toward the tempo of starlight, where a single beat takes longer than a lifetime. One of those breaths, the astronomers think, can outshine an entire ordinary star while it lasts. When this hypergiant convulses and casts off a great mass of material in one of its larger outbursts, the energy of that single heave is tremendous. A flaring of the surface, a vast plume of gas and dust thrown clear in a span of time that is brief for a star and unthinkably long for a person. These are not explosions in the violent sense, not the shattering end, but enormous slow exhalations, the laboured breathing of something very large and very old. Between them, the star simply glows and gathers itself for the next. Picture the surface of this ember as it would look from close by, and you would not find the smooth, bright disk of our sun. The outer layers of a red giant churn in vast slow cells, great rising columns of glowing gas the size of whole stars, billowing up, cooling, sinking back, like the lazy roll of bubbles in a pot left barely simmering on a low flame. Each of these convective cells can be larger across than the sun itself. The face of VY Canis Majoris is a slow boil, a few enormous blotches of brightness and shadow, drifting and reforming over months and years, a fire so big its very flickering happens in geological time. That slowness is woven into everything the star does. A red giant of this scale pulses, swelling and shrinking by degrees over long cycles, brightening and dimming in a rhythm measured not in moments, but in many months, even years. There is no flicker here that a human eye could catch. The star breathes the way a glacier moves, the way a mountain weathers, on a tempo so unhurried it borders on stillness. If you watched it for an entire human lifetime, you would see only the gentlest of changes, a tide that comes in over decades. Let your own breathing find something of that long, low rhythm now, each breath a little slower than the last. Records of the star's slow flickering reach back more than 100 years, kept by patient watchers who noted its brightness night after night, season after season, building a long, faint diary of its dimming and brightening. Across that century of observation it has wandered irregularly in brightness, never quite settling into a single steady rhythm, the mark of a star whose great outer layers heave and shudder in their own complicated way. To read that record is to look at more than a human lifetime of gentle change written down by hand, a slow pulse traced by generations who passed the watching from one to the next, none of them ever rushing the star. Faint as it is to us, this star sits below the threshold of the unaided eye, so that even on the clearest, darkest night, gazing straight toward the great dog, you would never pick it out among its neighbours without a telescope to gather its light. It glimmers at the edge of visibility, a red point too dim for human eyes alone, hidden in plain sight among the brighter stars of the Hound. There is a gentle humility in that. The largest known star, and you cannot see it. It asks for an instrument, for patience, for a long, quiet look. The grandest things are not always the loudest, and some of them must be sought softly to be found at all. Stars like this are, in the long economy of the galaxy, among its great makers of dust. The fine grains a red giant breathes out are not idle waste, but the very smoke from which future things are built, and giants of this kind are among the most generous sources of that cosmic smoke, seeding the spaces between the stars with the raw material of worlds. Much of the dust that drifts through the galaxy, that dims distant starlight and gathers one day into new suns and planets, was first exhaled by stars in exactly this swollen red phase. The giant is a factory of beginnings disguised as an ending, breathing out the dust of which tomorrow is quietly made. Consider how thoroughly such a star rewrites the meaning of the word distance. From its glowing surface, the inner planets of any system orbiting at sun-like distances would not orbit at all. They would already be deep inside the star, dissolved in its outer fire. The very idea of a sky, of standing on a world and looking up at a sun, has no room to exist here. There is no inside and outside, only the slow red immensity itself, fading by imperceptible degrees from dense and hot at the buried heart to thin and cool at the trailing edge hours of light away. It is less a star with planets than a small private cosmos, a sun grown so large it has erased the space around it. If any world could somehow exist at a safe remove from such a star, its sky would be filled almost entirely by that single red presence, an enormous ruddy dome curving overhead from horizon to horizon, far too large to take in with a single glance. There would be no small bright sun to squint at, only a great filling redness, warm and immense and ever-present, the whole heavens given over to one star. To live beneath such a sky, if it were possible, would be to live inside a perpetual red dawn that never broke into day and never faded into night, held always in that one warm, even, endless glow. The mind can rest a moment in that imagined sky, bathed in red light from edge to edge. The heart of all that, the buried core, is where the real engine hides. Down in the centre, under the crushing weight of all those puffed up outer layers, the temperature and pressure climb to extremes the surface never hints at. There the star fuses heavier and heavier elements, building toward the dense ash that the larger stars accumulate in their final ages. The serene red glow you would see from outside is only the cool skin over a furnace of almost unimaginable intensity, a calm face on a profound and ancient labour. Most of what the star is doing, it does invisibly, deep down, quietly, the way the deepest work of any life happens far from the surface. The surface of an ordinary star is divided into millions of small bright cells, a fine granulation like the texture of orange peel, but the face of a giant this swollen works on an utterly different scale. Here the convective cells are so enormous that only a few of them cover the entire visible surface at once. A handful of vast glowing patches, each larger than the whole sun, rising and sinking over months and years. The star's face is not a smooth disk, but a slow mosaic of a few great blotches, dim and bright, drifting and reforming. A surface that, seen up close, would look less like a sun than like the lazy turning of a few enormous embers in a hearth too large to comprehend. Deep in the core, the star's fusion has moved well beyond the simple burning of its youth, building heavier elements in successive layers like the rings of an onion, each shell forging a denser ash than the one outside it. This is the long labour of the most massive stars in their final ages. The patient construction of the heavy elements that the universe needs, carbon and oxygen and the metals beyond, cooked under pressures and heats the imagination cannot follow. The serene red glow on the outside is only the soft skin over this deep, slow, ancient forge, where the future furniture of worlds is quietly being made. The amount this star releases, weighed against our own sun, is almost beyond comparison. Where the sun lets slip only the faintest trickle of itself, VY Canis Majoris sheds material at a rate that, gathered up over a single year, would amount to many times the entire mass of the Earth, breathed out into the dark in 12 quiet months. Year upon year, century upon century, whole worlds worth of substance drift away from it into the cloud. And yet the star is so vast that this enormous loss barely troubles it. It simply goes on shining, lighter by a world each year, generous past all reckoning. There is a kind of ease in giving on that scale, a great old thing letting go of worlds the way a tree lets go of leaves. What reaches across the light years to us is mostly the gentle part, the long red warmth, the infrared sigh. By the time the star's radiance has crossed all those centuries of vacuum, it arrives faint and harmless, a dim point of ruddy light needing a telescope to be properly seen at all. The fury is entirely local, sealed away by distance. From here, the most extreme star you may ever hear of is nothing more than a soft red speck among the winter stars, utterly safe to gaze upon, a lit window seen from very far across a darkened field. All the violence is muffled by the kindness of space. Among the thousands of stars catalogued for their strangeness, this one has long been a favourite puzzle, precisely because it sits at the edge of what theory says ought to be possible. For a time, some measurements suggested it might be even larger than 1,400 suns across, large enough to spark long discussions about just how big a star is allowed to grow. Careful study has since settled it into a firm and astonishing place near the very top of the list. To study VY Canis Majoris is to study a limit, a frontier, the answer to a question the universe rarely asks aloud. How vast can a single sun become before it can no longer be a sun at all? The light that lets astronomers ask such questions is gathered patiently, night after night, by great telescopes turned toward that corner of Canis Major. Instruments tuned to the infrared peer through the dust. Others spread the starlight into its rainbow to read, in the dark lines threaded through that spectrum, the chemistry and motion and temperature of a thing no probe will ever visit. From a few faint beams of ancient red light, the entire portrait is reconstructed. The size, the cooling surface, the breathing shroud, all of it inferred from messengers that left before the alphabet was invented. It is a quiet kind of magic, to know a place so well and never to have been near it. There is a strange comfort in being so completely outmatched by a single object in the sky. Stand under the stars on a clear winter night, find the great dog, and somewhere in that direction, far past the bright eye of Sirius, hangs a furnace beside which the whole familiar solar system is a single warm room. You will never see it with the unaided eye. But it is there, and it has been there through every night you have ever known, breathing out its slow red light, indifferent and immense and entirely peaceful, a presence that has nothing to ask of you and nothing to take. Knowing it is there can make your own small warm darkness feel, somehow, more cherished, not less. The best time to turn toward that part of the sky is the depth of winter, when the great dog climbs the southern dark in the evening and the brilliant point of Sirius blazes low and clear. The whole constellation hangs there through the cold months, trotting after the bright belt of Orion, and somewhere within it, far past the reach of the unaided eye, the red giant keeps its place. To know roughly where it lies, even without seeing it, is a small, quiet pleasure, a way of greeting an enormous distant friend across the dark on a cold, clear night, knowing it is there whether or not you can pick it out. To look toward it, even knowing you cannot quite see it, is its own kind of rest. The eye relaxes into the dark, sweeping across the winter stars, and the mind settles into the simple act of looking outward, away from the day's small troubles, towards something immeasurably larger and older and calmer than anything close at hand. There is relief in lifting the gaze that far, in letting the attention travel out across 39 centuries of dark to rest on a single warm red point. The night sky is always there for that, an open door onto vastness, free to anyone willing to look up and let the eye wander outward into the deep. Even on nights when clouds cover the sky, or the city's glow drowns the fainter stars, the giant is still there, still glowing, still breathing out its red light far beyond the weather and the lamps. Its constancy does not depend on your seeing it. It burns on regardless, faithful in its distant corner whether the night is clear or covered. There is comfort in that too, in a presence so steady it needs no witness, shining on through every cloudy night and every bright one alike. You can let yourself trust that it is shining out there, exactly where it has always been, even with your eyes closed against the dark. Let the scale of that loosen something in the chest. The day's worries, the long list of undone things, all of it shrinks to its true size beside a star that would engulf the orbit of Saturn. Not erased, not dismissed, simply set gently in proportion, the way a single lit lamp looks smaller and more tender once you remember the size of the sky it sits beneath. There is room in a universe this large for everything to be exactly as small as it is, and for you to set it all down for the night. Whatever the great red giant eventually leaves behind far off in the deep future will be a small dense seed of extraordinary character. The collapsing core of so massive a star settles into one of the universe's most concentrated objects, perhaps a tiny city-sized sphere spinning in the dark, perhaps a quiet pocket of pure gravity from which not even light returns. Either way, the immense swollen giant resolves at last into something almost unimaginably small and still, all that vastness folded down into a single dark point. The largest of stars ends as one of the smallest of objects, the grand red immensity distilled to a single quiet seed, and the dark closes gently over it. The material flung outward in that distant ending would not be lost but scattered, enriching the surrounding clouds with all the heavy elements the star spent its life forging. Out of such scattered material, gathered again by gravity across long ages, new stars condense, and around them new worlds, some perhaps with oceans, some perhaps with life. So the ending of a giant like this is also a sowing, the seed fall of a great tree casting its substance into the dark so that new light can grow from it. Nothing is wasted in that final scattering. It is the universe's way of turning one ending into 1,000 beginnings, patiently, across spans of time no mind can hold. For all its eventual drama, the star serves in the meantime as a kind of distant marker in the galaxy, a bright red point that astronomers can find again and again, a fixed lantern against which to measure other things. Its very extremity makes it a landmark, a star so unusual that it stands out clearly in surveys of that crowded region of the sky. To use it that way, as a steady reference hung in the dark, is to treat the grandest of stars as something almost homely, a familiar light to navigate by, always there in its corner of the great dog, faithfully glowing whenever the instruments turn back toward it. The nebula's tangled arcs hint at a long and uneven history of these outbursts, written in loops of dust like rings in old wood. By reading the spacing and the speed of the cast-off shells, Astronomers can read the star's recent biography. Here, a quieter century. There, a great convulsion that flung a bright curl far out into the dark. The whole shroud is a kind of diary, each layer a page, the most recent breaths nearest the star, and the oldest ones drifting at the outermost edges, faint and cooling and spreading thin. The star keeps no other record, yet its entire restless past is hanging right there, legible to anyone with the patience to look. The shapes the star has written into its shroud have a strange grace to them, like brushstrokes in some unhurried hand, loops and curls and trailing flourishes drawn across the dark in glowing dust. No two of the arcs are quite alike. Each was flung by a different breath in a different age with a different force, so the whole forms a kind of freehand script, expressive and irregular and alive. There is more beauty in such uneven, hand-drawn shapes than in any perfect circle, the beauty of something made by a living process rather than stamped from a mould. The star writes in dust, and its handwriting is lovely. All of that writing was done in perfect silence, across spans of time no witness could sit through, the great curls flung out and the knots gathered and the filaments drawn fine, all without a single sound, all far too slow for any eye to follow in the moment. The shroud is a finished work whose making no one watched, a quiet masterpiece assembled in the dark over thousands of years, and it is still being added to, breath by breath, the star forever at work on a composition it will never complete and never sign, content simply to go on making it. There is a deep restfulness in work done that way, unhurried and unwitnessed, for no reason but the doing. The speeds of those expanding shells are themselves a quiet astonishment. The cast-off material drifts outward at many tens of kilometres every second, fast beyond any human sense of motion, and yet, set against the sheer size of the nebula, it crawls. A shell flung out long ago has travelled an enormous distance, and still has not finished leaving. The star and its cloud move on two utterly different clocks at once, the gas racing by every ordinary measure, the whole vast structure barely changing across a human lifetime. Both things are true, speed and stillness, folded into one glowing object, depending only on how far back you stand to watch. The shells in that shroud were cast off across spans of time that dwarf whole human civilizations. The oldest, outermost loops drifted free of the star many centuries or even millennia ago, and have been travelling outward ever since, while the freshest material still clings close to the glowing surface, only recently exhaled. To read the cloud from its inner edge to its outer rim is to read a calendar that runs across thousands of years, the star's slow autobiography written in expanding rings of dust. Each ring is a chapter, each gap a quieter age, and the whole of it hangs there at once, the past made visible, glowing softly in the dark. In places the thick clumps of dust cast their own faint shadows, blocking the star's red light and throwing dim lanes across the brighter cloud beyond, so that the shroud is mottled with light and shade like sunlight falling through leaves. The densest knots dim the glow behind them, the thinner reaches let it shine through. The result is a textured, dappled immensity, neither uniformly bright nor uniformly dark, full of soft gradations the way a forest floor is full of moving patches of light. Even a cloud of cast-off dust arranges itself into something intricate and beautiful, lit and shadowed by the very star that made it. Stand in the mind somewhere within that vast shroud, far enough from the star that its fire is gentle to a warm red glow filling half the sky. Around you, faint filaments of dust would drift like the slowest of snow, lit from one side by the great ember, and the dark between them would not be black, but a deep banked red, warm and enveloping. There would be no sharp shadows, no hard light, only a diffuse and even glow steeped in warmth, the whole of space around you the colour of a dying fire. To rest in such a place would be to rest inside a hearth the size of a planetary orbit, held in red light on every side. Within the shroud, conditions are right for the slow chemistry of space to begin. Out in the cooling gas, simple molecules form and gather, the first faint syllables of cosmic chemistry, water, and the building blocks of more complex compounds knitting themselves together in the dark. The same kinds of molecules that, much later and much elsewhere, become part of comets and oceans and living things, take their first shape here, in the breath of a dying star. The end of one thing is quietly laying the groundwork for the beginning of countless others. Nothing in this place is truly wasted. It is all being handed forward. Hold the contrast of the two stars in the Great Dog one more time, because it says something gentle about how the sky's arranged. Sirius blazes close and brilliant and brief by the standards of stellar lives, a young blue-white flame that will burn out long before the red giant's slow story is done. VY Canis Majoris glows faint and distant and immense, far older in its way, far nearer its ending, and yet so much larger that Sirius beside it would be a spark beside a bonfire. Brightness in our sky is not the same as greatness in space. The dimmest light can hide the vastest thing. There is a quiet lesson in that, soft enough to fall asleep on, and the dimness is, again, only distance doing its patient work. Were this red giant set as near as Sirius, it would not be a faint speck at all. It would be one of the most dazzling objects in the entire night sky, a deep red lantern outshining the planets, impossible to miss. The only reason it hides among the fainter stars is the vast gulf of nearly 4,000 years of travel its light must make to reach you. Distance has dimmed a furnace into a candle. The night sky is full of such disguises, giants pretending to be sparks, simply because they are far away. Imagine, just for the ease of it, the journey of one single photon leaving that star's surface tonight. Were you somehow able to watch it? It would slip free of the red glow, thread its way out through the loops and knots of the surrounding shroud, brushing past drifting grains of newborn dust, and then break into the open dark. From there it would fly, year upon year, century upon century, through emptiness so complete it meets almost nothing at all, until at last, 3,900 years later, it arrives at the rim of a small blue world and is gone in an instant against someone's eye. A long, long voyage ending in a single silent flash. The sky is full of such travellers, always arriving, always just now reaching the end of journeys begun before memory. The emptiness those photons cross is almost perfect, and there is a deep peace in that fact. Between the stars, space is nearer to true nothing than anything you will ever encounter. A vacuum so complete that the thin shroud of a hypergiant counts as dense by comparison. The light makes its enormous crossing undisturbed, unhurried, meeting no wall, no weather, no resistance, only the long open dark. To travel like that, frictionless and free for 39 centuries, is a kind of rest in motion. The whole sky is threaded with these quiet, untroubled flights. Even the way such a star will eventually end is, from this distance, only beauty. When a red hypergiant finally exhausts its long burning and its core gives way, the event would blaze across the heavens of its own neighbourhood, and even here, thousands of light years off, it would appear as a new bright star in the night that lingered for weeks and then slowly faded. People in some far future age might look up and see a soft new point of light arrive, never knowing it was the gentle echo of an ending that happened long before, its message only now reaching their eyes. An ending turned by time and distance into a quiet arrival. For now, though, none of that has come. For now there is only the steady red glow, the slow boil of the surface, the loops of dust hanging in the dark, and a vast patient star going calmly about the last long age of its life. Nothing is rushing toward its end out there. The star has all the time in the cosmos, and it spends that time simply shining. Borrow a little of that ease. There is nothing you must finish tonight either. Like the star, you are allowed to simply be, glowing softly in your own small warmth, while the long dark holds you without asking anything in return. The number that names its size keeps slipping out of reach, which is itself a strange comfort because it means the mind can stop trying to hold it. 1400 times the sun's radius is not a thing the imagination can clasp. It is a thing the imagination can only gesture toward and then release, and releasing it is allowed. You do not have to picture the whole of it. You can let the fact be larger than your grip on it, and simply rest in the knowing that it is there, immense beyond reckoning, while your own thoughts grow smaller and softer and easier to let go. If you laid the planets of our own system along the body of this star, the comparison turns almost tender. Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, all of them would lie buried within its outer glow, their entire orbits drowned in red light. The wide asteroid belt, the great gulf beyond Mars, all of it inside. Only out near the rings of Saturn would you finally find the trailing edge of the star, where its faint atmosphere thins away into the dark. Everything you think of as the neighbourhood of the sun, every world, every distance you have ever heard named, would fit inside this one star with a room to spare. The familiar map, swallowed whole and glowing. Dwell a moment longer on that swallowed map because the details make it real. The little rocky worlds, Mercury closest to the warmth, then Venus, then the Earth with all its oceans and weather, then rust-coloured Mars, would everyone lie deep inside the red glow, their entire paths drowned in fire. Past them, the wide belt of tumbling asteroids also inside, then the long cold gulf, also inside. Only out where Saturn wears its bright rings of ice would you reach the faint trailing edge of the star where its thin red atmosphere finally gives way to the dark. The whole sunlit neighbourhood you have ever heard described, swallowed whole, with the ringed planet skimming the very rim. And around that ringed edge the star's outermost atmosphere would not end sharply, but fade away into its shroud, so that even Saturn's orbit would lie not quite at a true boundary, but in a thinning red haze, the last whisper of the star before open space. There is no clean line anywhere. The giant simply grows fainter and cooler and thinner outward, fading into the dark by imperceptible degrees. To stand, impossibly, at Saturn's distance from such a star would be to stand within the faintest outer breath of it, bathed in dim red light reaching in from every direction, the whole sky aglow. That single comparison, the sun's whole family of worlds fitting inside one star, does more to convey its size than any number could. Numbers slide past the mind, but the image of Saturn skimming the edge of a single star stays, vivid and strange and somehow calming. It sets the scale of things in a way the body can feel, the familiar made small, the distant made enormous, the whole map of home tucked inside one far red ember. Hold that picture lightly as the night deepens, and let it widen the dark around you into something restful and immense. The mass of such a giant, oddly, has not kept pace with its size. For all its tremendous width, VY Canis Majoris weighs perhaps a few tens of times what the Sun weighs, which is to say it has spread a fairly modest amount of material across an absolutely colossal volume. This is the secret of its astonishing thinness. The same stuff that would make a tight, fierce, ordinary star has instead been puffed out to planetary orbit size, leaving the whole thing wispy and rarefied and luminous. It is less a solid sun than a vast warm breath holding the rough shape of one, substance stretched to its gentlest possible limit and still shining. There is a phase in the long life of the most massive stars that this one is now passing through, a kind of grand and unstable maturity. Stars this big do not age quietly. As their cores evolve, their outer layers swell and shudder, and sometimes heave off great shells of material in fits and starts, and the star walks an uneasy line between holding together and coming apart. VY Canis Majoris is in exactly this restless season of its life, neither stable nor truly failing, breathing hard, shedding itself, glowing all the while. It is a star caught in the slow drama of its own grandeur, and from a safe distance, that drama looks like nothing more than a calm red light. The dust the star sheds will not stay near it forever. Over long ages, the expanding shroud will keep drifting outward, thinning and cooling and spreading, until at last it merges with the wider clouds of gas and dust that lace the spaces between the stars. The star's lost material becomes part of the galaxy's common stock, the raw cloud from which new stars and new worlds will someday condense. In this way, the giant is not only ending, it is sowing. What it breathes out tonight may, in some unimaginable future, be gathered into a new sun, a new set of worlds, a new beginning lit from the ashes of this one. The cosmos loses nothing, it only rearranges. Even the silence around the star is not quite empty of motion. Through the shroud, faint stirrings ripple as fresh material catches up with older shells, gentle collisions in slow motion, shock waves that move like the spreading of ripples on a pond seen from very far away. Nothing here is still in the absolute sense. Everything drifts and settles and rearranges, only on a tempo so vast that to any eye it appears frozen. The whole region is alive with the slowest imaginable weather, a forecast measured in centuries, clouds that take 1,000 years to cross the sky. Let the thought of that long, low weather move through you like the sound of distant rain. Think of how rare it is, in all the vast catalogue of stars, to find one like this at all. The overwhelming majority of stars are small, modest, long-lived suns no larger than ours or smaller, burning steadily for billions of years. The true giants, the hypergiants, are extraordinarily scarce, a mere handful scattered through the whole galaxy, each one a brief and brilliant rarity in the grand population of the sky. To know that VY Canis Majoris exists at all is to know that the universe, every so often, indulges in something extravagant, a star built far beyond the ordinary measure, glowing red and enormous for a cosmic moment before letting go. You happen to share your night with one of them. To grasp how scarce such giants are, set them against the sheer multitude of stars. For every hypergiant like this one, there are many millions upon millions of ordinary stars, modest yellow and orange and red suns spread thickly through the galaxy. To find a single VY Canis Majoris is to find one rare flower in a meadow stretching past the horizon, a single extravagance among uncountable ordinary lights. The rarity does not make it lonely, it makes it precious, a once-in-a-multitude wonder that happens to hang in the same sky you rest beneath. The universe makes such extravagances only seldom, and you are here for one of them. And rare as it is, this red giant is also a teacher, for in its swollen, shedding, unstable grandeur, astronomers read the future and the limits of all the most massive stars. By studying this one extreme example, they learn how the largest suns live and change and end, how they enrich the galaxy with their cast-off substance, how they walk the edge between holding together and letting go. A single star becomes a window onto a whole class of cosmic giants, a lesson written large enough to read across the light years. There is something fitting in that, the grandest of stars serving also as one of the grandest of teachers, offering its rare example freely to anyone who looks. The region of the galaxy that cradles this star is a nursery as much as it is a deathbed. Nearby, in the same stretch of the Great Dog, lie clouds where new stars are being born, young hot suns kindling out of cold gas, so that the dying giant has, for neighbours, the very newest lights in that part of the sky. Birth and ending share the same neighbourhood, the freshest flames burning close to the oldest, all of it part of the galaxy's endless turning of gas into stars and stars back into gas. There is a deep balance in that arrangement, the cradle and the long farewell hung in the same patch of dark, neither one without the other. The precise distance to the star was pinned down by a method of beautiful patience, watching those tiny radio glints in its shroud shift their apparent positions ever so slightly as the Earth swung around the Sun across the year. From the faint angle of that shift, astronomers triangulated the gulf to the star the way a surveyor measures a far mountain by sighting it from two ends of a known baseline. The whole enormous distance, the the 39 centuries of travel, was teased out of a sliver of angle almost too small to measure, by careful watchers content to wait a full year for the Earth to move. The grandest measurements, like the grandest stars, reward a slow and steady gaze. Within the catalogue of the sky's most luminous stars, this one keeps remarkable company. There are stars known not for their width, but for their sheer outpouring of light, fierce blue beacons near the limit of how bright a star can shine, and there are the swollen red giants like VY Canis Majoris, vast and cool, pouring most of their radiance out as unseen warmth. Each kind tests a different edge of what a star can be, one straining the limit of brightness, the other the limit of size. To set them side by side is to glimpse the full range of stellar possibility, the many ways a sun can be extraordinary, and to feel how varied and generous the universe is in its making of lights. The redness of the star is the redness of a fire seen through deep dusk, and it carries the same hush. Cool stars glow toward the red end of the spectrum, their light shifted toward the long, warm, restful wavelengths, the colours of sunset and embers, and the last light under a door. There is a reason these colours soothe. They are the colours the world turns as it lets go of the day. VY Canis Majoris wears that colour permanently, a perpetual dusk glow hung in the dark, a star the colour of the moment just before sleep. Let your inner sky take on a little of that warm red dimness now, the brightness draining gently out of the day. Far down inside, the star's slow fusion is forging elements that will one day be scattered to the wider galaxy, and some of those very elements are the ones that make up the world you live in. The carbon in every living thing, the oxygen you're breathing, the iron in your blood and the calcium in your bones were all forged inside stars like this one and then released, in their endings, into the clouds from which new worlds formed. A star such as VY Canis Majoris is a foundry of the very atoms that, much later and much elsewhere, become rivers and forests and people. The body resting under the blanket tonight is built of substances first cooked in the hearts of ancient suns. You are, quite literally, made of starlight that cooled. That kinship can settle the mind in a strange and pleasant way. The same kinds of atoms drifting in that distant red shroud are the atoms of which you are made, separated only by enormous distance and enormous time. There is no true wall between the body in the bed and the star in the sky. Both are arrangements of the same handful of elements, the same dust, briefly gathered into shape. For a little while, a few of those atoms are you, warm and breathing and quietly awake. For a little while, a great many of them are a star, and someday all of it returns to the common dark and is gathered up again. There is nothing to fear in belonging so completely to the universe. The same handful of elements that make up this distant giant make up everything you have ever touched. The same hydrogen and carbon and oxygen and iron, arranged in countless different ways across the universe. There is no special exotic substance out there in the red star that is not also here, in the water you drink and the air you breathe and the body resting under the blanket. The cosmos is built everywhere from the same modest set of ingredients, mixed and remixed into stars and worlds and creatures. To know that is to feel the strangeness fall away from the distant star. It is made of exactly what you are made of, only gathered into a different and grander shape. Belonging so completely to the same material universe can settle the mind in a way few thoughts can. You're not a stranger gazing at an alien thing. You are kin to it, woven from the same atoms, a small warm arrangement of the very stuff that, elsewhere, glows as a star. The distance between you and the red giant is real, but the substance is shared, and in that sharing there is a deep and quiet belonging. The universe is not a cold and foreign place you happen to find yourself in. It is the very fabric you are cut from, and you rest tonight in the heart of it, made of its oldest material, entirely at home. There is no need, then, to feel small beneath such a star in any way that wounds. Small in size, yes, but not small in kinship. Brief in time, yes, but made of the same ancient atoms that have endured since the universe was young. You are a passing arrangement of imperishable material, here for a little while in your own warm shape, sharing the night with a great red cousin made of the same enduring stuff. That is not a lonely thought, but a tender one, a reminder that you belong completely and forever to the vast bright family of things made of stardust. The whole life of so massive a star is, by the standards of the cosmos, astonishingly brief, and that brevity is itself a kind of wonder. The smallest, dimmest stars burn so frugally that they will shine for hundreds of billions of years, far longer than the universe has yet existed. But a giant like this one burns lavishly, spending its enormous fuel in only a few million years, a flicker in cosmic time, blazing bright and dying young. The largest stars live the shortest lives, pouring out everything they have in a single grand and rapid chapter. There is a strange gentleness in knowing that the most extravagant things are often the most fleeting, here and gone in a cosmic breath. Set that few million-year lifetime against the span of a human life, and the comparison dissolves into something almost tender. Everything you have ever known, every person, every story, every empire and language and song fits many times over inside the brief life of this single star, and the star itself is brief by the measure of the galaxy. We are small flickers within a larger flicker within a vastness that barely moves at all. And yet here you are, awake for your own short while, sharing the same night as this enormous fading ember. Both of you brief, both of you glowing, both of you part of the same unhurried turning of things. The tempo of the star's changes is so unlike anything in human experience that it has to be reached for slowly. It does nothing quickly. Its pulsing takes months and years. Its outbursts unfold over centuries. Its whole life runs across millions of years. Set beside it, a human heartbeat is a blur, a single day, a flash too brief to notice. The star moves the way mountains move, the way the slow grinding of stone moves, on a clock so vast that to it the entire span of human history would pass in something like a single long afternoon. Let your own racing thoughts borrow a little of that enormous unhurried tempo, slowing toward the pace of stone and starlight. Within this single star lie the two great extremes of density side by side, the unthinkably crushed and the unthinkably empty. Down in the buried core, matter is squeezed to a denseness the imagination cannot follow, while up in the swollen outer reaches the same star thins to a glowing haze emptier than the finest vacuum on Earth. One object, holding within it both the most compressed and the most rarefied matter, a furnace heart wrapped in a near-empty fog of red light. The whole range of what matter can be, from the densest to the thinnest, is folded into this one enormous sphere, and yet from far away it shows only a single calm red glow. What holds so unstable a giant together at all is a delicate standoff between two enormous forces, the inward pull of its own gravity and the outward push of the light and heat streaming up from its core. For now those two pressures balance just barely, and the star endures, neither collapsing nor flying apart. It lives on the knife edge of that balance, swaying gently between them, its great size made possible only by the fineness of the equilibrium. There is something almost graceful in a thing so enormous held aloft by so delicate a poise, a giant balanced on the meeting of two pressures, glowing steadily in the dark while the balance holds. The instruments that watch this star have grown patient and refined over the years, tracing it across the spectrum from the visible red all the way down into the long radio waves. Each kind of light reveals a different layer, a different secret, the visible glow of the surface, the infrared shine of the dust, the faint radio hum of molecules forming in the cold. Layer by layer, a complete portrait emerges, the deepest understanding ever assembled of an object no traveller will reach. It is a strange intimacy, this knowing across an unbridgeable gulf to map every feature of a place you can never set foot upon. The mind reaches where the body never can. Each kind of telescope tells a different part of the star's story. The great mirrors that gather visible light show the dim red point and the brighter inner reaches of its shroud. The instruments tuned to infrared see straight through the dust to the warmth glowing within. The radio dishes catch the faint sparks of molecules forming in the cold outer cloud. No single instrument sees the whole. Only by laying their views together does the full portrait emerge, layer upon layer, each adding what the others cannot reach. It takes many different kinds of looking to know one distant thing well, and the star rewards every one of them with another secret. There is a deep and restful patience built into this whole way of knowing. No probe will ever travel to the star, no eye will ever see it close. Everything understood about it has been teased from the faint light that happens to fall on the Earth, read carefully, cross-checked, refined over decades by people content to learn a distant thing, one small certainty at a time. It is knowledge gathered without ever touching its subject, a portrait drawn entirely from afar, and there is something almost tender in that, the way a thing utterly beyond reach can still be known and cherished across the dark. To hold all those ways of seeing together is to feel how much the universe offers to a quiet, attentive mind. From a single dim red speck, too faint for the eye, has come a whole understanding of size and warmth and chemistry and change, an entire world of knowledge drawn from a thread of ancient light. The cosmos hides nothing maliciously. It simply waits to be read, offering its secrets to anyone who looks long enough and carefully enough. And tonight, you've received a little of that long reading, the gathered understanding of generations, handed to you in the dark to rest upon. Among the things that mapping has revealed is just how much the star is losing, and how steadily. In the span of time it takes our sun to shed the merest trace of itself, VY Canis Majoris lets go of vastly more, a rate of loss so great that, over the long ages still ahead of it, it will shed a significant fraction of its entire body into the dark. The star is quite literally diminishing as it shines, growing lighter and thinner with every passing millennium, giving itself away by degrees. There is something almost generous in that slow, luminous surrender, a great old thing that holds nothing back, that meets its ending by opening rather than closing. The wind that carries the star's substance away moves outward at a stately pace by the measure of space, tens of kilometers in every second, and yet it leaves the star so densely laden with dust and gas that it has been described as one of the great smoke plumes of the galaxy. Picture smoke rising from a vast slow fire, curling and spreading as it climbs, except that this smoke is light years wide and glows with its own warmth. The star is forever exhaling that luminous smoke into the dark, building the cloud that cloaks it, a fire whose smoke does not rise and vanish but hangs and shines, drifting outward across the ages. Over the long remainder of its life, this slow exhaling will strip away an enormous fraction of the star's entire body, layer after layer breathed off into the surrounding dark until much of what it once was has become nebula. The star is, in the most literal sense, dismantling itself, returning its substance to the galaxy a little at a time, growing thinner and lighter across the millennia. It is not so much dying as undressing, setting down the great mass it spent its youth gathering, until in the end only the dense core remains. There is a kind of grace in that long unburdening, a great old thing laying down its weight piece by piece, in no hurry to be finished. Even now, with every passing year, the star is measurably less than it was, a fraction of a world lighter, a little nearer its eventual ending, and yet from the outside nothing seems to change. The red glow holds steady, the slow pulse continues, the great shape endures. The enormous loss is spread across spans of time so long that, moment to moment, the star appears utterly constant, a fixed red light in the dark. Both things are true at once, the ceaseless letting go and the apparent changelessness, depending only on whether you measure in years or in eons. There is comfort in a change so gradual it wears the perfect face of permanence, the shape of the nebula, with its arcs flung mostly to one side, hints that the star's breathing is not symmetrical. The outbursts seem to favour certain directions, sending great curls of material streaming one way more than another, perhaps shaped by slow currents deep within the star, perhaps by motions of its surface no one can yet fully read. The result is a lopsided beauty, a cloud that leans and flows and gestures, more like a thing caught in a soft wind than a tidy expanding shell. The universe rarely makes anything perfectly symmetrical. It prefers these leaning, living, half-finished shapes, and there is more comfort in them than in any perfect sphere. In the images astronomers assemble of the star and its shroud, colours are often laid over the different wavelengths to make the invisible visible, so that the infrared warmth is painted in golds and ambers, the cooler reaches in deeper reds and blues, and the whole cloud blooms into a softly glowing palette that no eye would see directly, but that faithfully maps the warmth and chemistry within. These are not false pictures, but translations. The silent infrared rendered into colours a human can hold, the hidden made beautiful and plain. Through them the star's surroundings become a thing of layered light, ambers fading into crimsons, fading into the dark, a portrait painted in the colours of warmth itself. The textures revealed in those portraits are endlessly varied, the cloud neither smooth nor uniform but full of wisps and knots and streaming filaments, here gathered thick and bright, there thinned to the faintest haze, like smoke caught in different stages of curling. Some regions look almost woven, threaded through with fine strands, others billow like slow clouds, others trail away into nothing. The shroud is a landscape of soft textures, a place the eye could wander through for a long while, finding always another curl, another knot, another gentle gradation of light and shade. There is a restfulness in such an image, the kind of slow looking that asks nothing and rewards everything. To sit with all of this is to feel the ordinary sense of size quietly dissolve. The room around you, the building, the city, the wide curve of the Earth itself, all of it could be set inside this one star and lost like a pebble in an ocean. And the star in turn is a speck within its galaxy, and the galaxy a mote within the wider universe, and so on outward past any reckoning. Rather than making the small things feel meaningless, this can make them feel precious, rare, improbable, warm points of order in an immensity of dark. You, awake and breathing and softly thinking in a small lit room, are one of the rarest things of all in a cosmos mostly made of empty space and distant fire. The light from this star that reaches Earth has been studied long enough that its slow pulsing, its faint rise and fall in brightness, is now part of the record. Over the months and years, careful watchers note it dim a little and brighten again, the gentle respiration of a star measured across human spans of time. To track that rhythm is to take the pulse of something that has been beating since before our oldest stories, a heartbeat so slow that a single one of its cycles outlasts whole human generations. The star breathes, and we're only just patient enough to notice. Let the knowledge of that long, unhurried pulse steady your own. There is a particular wonder in considering that this star was already ancient and swollen and shedding its skin while the very first humans were learning to make fire of their own. Every campfire ever kindled, every hearth, every candle, every lamp, the whole long human story of small tended flames, has unfolded entirely within the lifetime of this single red giant, and the giant has barely changed. It glowed before the first flame was struck, and it glows now, vast and indifferent and serene, a fire so old and so large that all of human warmth is the briefest flicker beside it, and yet the small flame and the giant star are kin, both light, both warmth, both fire in the dark. Picture the boundary of the star, not as a hard edge like the skin of an apple, but as a fading, a place where the dense red glow thins gradually away into the surrounding shroud, with no clear line between them. A star this puffed up has no true surface at all. It simply grows less and less substantial as you move outward, until at some indefinite point you would have to say you had left the star and entered its nebula, though you could never name the exact moment of crossing. It is all gradient, all soft transition, dense fire melting imperceptibly into glowing mist. The most enormous things often have the gentlest edges. Even the largest stars end not with a wall, but with a fading. What astronomers call the surface of such a star is really just the depth at which its thinning gas finally becomes too sparse to glow, the layer where the red light last escapes before there is nothing left to shine. Below that depth, the gas is opaque, glowing and dense. Above it, the gas is too thin to be seen. The surface is not a thing but a transition, a depth in a haze, the place where the star fades into the dark around it. To speak of its edge at all is a kindness of language. In truth, the star simply grows fainter and fainter outward until the dark takes over, with no line anywhere to mark the crossing. Sink inward from that faint edge, in the imagination, and the haze grows steadily warmer and denser, the red light thickening, the temperature climbing degree by degree toward the buried furnace far below. There is no sudden boundary anywhere on the way down, only a smooth deepening, a gradient of heat and glow that intensifies the further in you go. The whole star is a single vast gradient, cool and thin at its trailing edges, fierce and dense at its hidden heart, with every shade of red and warmth in between. It is less an object with a surface than a slow fading of fire into dark, gentle at every step. The very sky that holds this star is the same sky that countless people have gazed into across the whole span of human time. The same great dog, the same bright Sirius, the same dark behind it where the red giant hides. Every generation that ever looked up at the winter stars looked, without knowing it, toward this enormous fading ember, and the same ancient light fell into their eyes as falls into yours tonight. There is a quiet companionship in that, a thread of shared looking running back through all the nights of the past, every watcher joined to every other by the same far light. You are the latest in a long line of upturned faces, and the star shines on for you as it shone for them. The wavelengths of light the star pours out most strongly lie in the infrared, the band of warmth just beyond the red the eye can see. If your skin could perceive that radiance the way it feels the warmth of a fire, this distant star would register as a faint, steady warmth in the dark sky, a hearth so far away you could hold your hands toward it and feel only the memory of heat. Most of the universe's light, in fact, glows in colours no human eye was built to see, and this star is a grand example, shining mostly in a warmth that must be felt rather than seen. There is a whole hidden brightness to the cosmos, a warmth woven through the dark that we are only learning to sense. Consider how the very atoms in the star's outer layers behave at such tremendous size and such cool temperature. Up in those thin, far-flung reaches, the gas is so rarefied and so cool that molecules can form and survive, clinging together in the relative calm above the furnace, building the simple compounds that the surrounding dust is made from. A star is usually thought of as too hot for anything but bare atoms, yet the outermost skin of this red giant is mild enough, in its uppermost reaches, for the first delicate chemistry of molecules to begin. Even within a star there is a quiet edge where complexity can take hold. The gentlest things find their footing at the margins. The first molecules to form in the cooling outer reaches are simple ones, a pairing of two atoms here, a small cluster there, but they are the beginning of all the chemistry the universe will ever build. From these humble first combinations, given enough time and the right cold, quiet places, arise the richer molecules of ice and rock, and eventually far away, the intricate chemistry of living things. The cast-off cloud of this dying star is one of the countless cradles where that long ascent begins, the very first rung of a ladder that climbs, elsewhere and much later, all the way to life. The largest, oldest stars sow the seeds of the smallest, newest things. There is a pleasing symmetry in a star so enormous giving birth, in its outer breath, to things so minute as single molecules. the grandest object in the sky busies itself at its cool far edge with the most delicate of chemistry, knitting together pairs of atoms in the cold. Vastness and minuteness meet in the same star, the colossal furnace and the tiny molecule, each as much a part of its nature as the other. The universe does not reserve its wonders for the large or the small alone. It folds both into a single thing and invites you to marvel at the whole range at once, from the planet's swallowing immensity to the two atoms joining hands in the dark. When astronomers first turned their most powerful instruments toward this object and resolved its strange surroundings in detail, they found a complexity that surprised them, a nebula far richer and more intricate than a simple round shell. The cast-off material formed knots and arcs and streamers, structures with their own shapes and stories, evidence of a star whose history of breathing has been long and varied and uneven. Each feature became a clue, a fossil of an ancient outburst preserved in glowing dust. What had seemed, from afar, a single point of red light revealed itself up close to be a whole intricate landscape, sculpted patiently over thousands of years. That landscape is, in its way, a monument the star is building to itself without intending to, simply by living. It does not plan the arcs or design the knots. They form on their own, the natural sculpture of a great star breathing out across long ages. And yet the result is something that looks almost deliberate, almost composed, a great and delicate artwork hanging in the dark, made of nothing but lost starlight and drifting dust. The universe is full of such unintended beauty, shapes no one designed that arrive looking designed, order blooming on its own out of the patient physics of things. There is comfort in a cosmos that makes beauty without trying. The cloud the star has cast off carries within it a mass equal to many times that of the sun, an enormous reservoir of gas and dust spread across the region, all of it once part of the star's own body. To gather so much material into the surrounding dark, breath by breath, across the ages, is a labour of astonishing scale, and the cloud stands as the visible record of it, a great soft monument of lost substance. Somewhere in that cloud is the equal of many suns' worth of matter, drifting free, glowing faintly, waiting across unimaginable spans of time to be gathered up again into something new. The grains of dust forming in that cloud are minute beyond ordinary imagining, far smaller than the motes that hang in a shaft of afternoon light. Tiny crystals of silicate and carbon condensing straight out of the cooling gas, the way frost crystallizes out of cold air. Each grain is a speck almost too small to call a thing, and yet from such specks gathered in their countless trillions across the ages, whole planets are eventually built. The star is breathing out the finest possible powder, the seed dust of future worlds, scattering it into the dark to settle slowly across the long reaches of time. The largest of stars makes the smallest of things, and from those smallest things, in the fullness of ages, new largeness grows. In this way, the star is a foundry not only of heavy atoms, but of the molecules those atoms first combine into, a place where the raw elements forged in the core are exhaled into the cold, and there begin to find one another, to pair and cluster and grow more complex. From bare atoms to simple molecules to grains of dust, the shroud is a ladder of slowly rising complexity, each rung a little richer than the last. The universe builds itself up in patient steps, and the cast-off cloud of a single star is one small workshop where that building quietly goes on. Nothing is ever truly finished here. Everything is forever becoming. The distance to the star, 3,900 light-years, is itself a number that invites the mind to soften. It is a gulf so wide that the fastest thing in existence needs nearly 4,000 years to cross it, a span longer than all of recorded history laid end to end. No vessel humans have ever built could traverse it in 100,000 lifetimes. And yet the light makes the crossing as a matter of course, arriving faithfully every night, the star's quiet message delivered across an abyss no body could ever bridge. The universe is vast beyond any hope of travel, and still its light comes to us, freely, asking nothing. We are reached even where we cannot go. There is a deep restfulness in being on the receiving end of so long a journey. You do not have to go anywhere to meet this star. Its light has done all the travelling, crossing the entire gulf to arrive at your sky on its own. All that is asked of you is to be still and let it come. So much of the universe works this way, reaching toward you across unthinkable distances while you stay exactly where you are, warm and unmoving. The light comes to the eye, the warmth comes to the skin, the wonder comes to the resting mind. You need not chase any of it. It is already on its way, and some of it is already here. The star's catalogue designation, those few letters and the name of the constellation, marks it as one entry among the countless objects astronomers have charted, and yet it stands out even in that vast list as something exceptional. Of all the hundreds of billions of stars in the galaxy, only a tiny number rival it in size, and for a long time it held a place at or very near the absolute summit. To be the largest of anything, in a galaxy this enormous, is a distinction almost beyond meaning, and this faint red point in the Great Dog has worn that distinction quietly for as long as anyone has known of it. The grandest thing in 100 billion, hanging unremarked in the winter sky. Let the immensity of that galaxy hold you for a moment alongside the star. The Milky Way, the great wheel of stars our sun belongs to, is so large that even at the speed of light it takes 100,000 years to cross from rim to rim, and VY Canis Majoris is only one ember within it, set far across the spiral from the sun. Around it turn hundreds of billions of other stars, each with its own light, its own story, most of them never to be named. The red giant is a single bright thread in a tapestry too large to take in, and so are we, and so is the sun, all of us woven into the same slow turning. There is a place for everything in a wheel that vast, and a place in it for you. Our own sun, in its far-off future, will pass through a red giant phase of its own, swelling and cooling and reddening as it ages, though it will never approach the colossal scale of VY Canis Majoris. Every star that lives long enough eventually puffs outward in its later years. It is one of the most common chapters in the long story of stars. So the great red giant in the Great Dog is not an alien thing but a distant glimpse of a fate many suns share, an extreme and magnificent version of an ending written into the nature of stars themselves. To look at it is to glimpse, in exaggerated form, the slow, warm closing that awaits a great many lights, including the small, steady one that warms your own days. Among the hundreds of billions of stars wheeling within the Milky Way, the overwhelming majority are modest, quiet suns, smaller and dimmer and far longer lived than ours, burning their fuel sparingly across spans of time that dwarf the age of the universe. The sun itself is an ordinary middle-sized star, neither large nor small, one unremarkable light among the multitudes. And VY Canis Majoris is the rare extravagance, the once in a vast multitude giant, a star built far beyond the common measure. The galaxy is mostly made of gentle, ordinary lights, with here and there a single extraordinary one blazing among them, and tonight you happen to share your sky with one of the most extraordinary of all. To hold the sun and the giant together in the mind is to feel the enormous range of what a star can be. The sun, which seems to us so overwhelming that we cannot look at it directly, would be a small grain beside this red immensity, one of more than 1 billion such grains that could be poured into its volume, and yet the sun is the giver of every warm day you have ever known, the source of nearly all the light and life on the small world beneath you. Size is not the same as importance. The modest star at the centre of our days matters more to you than the grandest giant in the sky. There is a quiet reassurance in that what is near and warm and faithful can outweigh what is merely enormous. The very concept of a year of light, a light year, becomes a kind of gentle measuring stick the more you sit with it. It is the distance light travels in one full circuit of the seasons, an enormous span, and the star is nearly 4,000 of those lengths away. Each of those light years is a vast reach of dark, and yet strung together they form a road the starlight has already walked. To name the distance in years is to remember that space and time are woven together, that to look far across space is always to look far back into time. The farther you gaze, the older the light, until looking out becomes the same as looking back. The whole sky is a kind of memory. Were this star somehow brought close enough to see plainly, its colour would be a deep, saturated red, unlike anything in the daytime world. The red of garnet, of dark wine, of the last coal in the grate. A red so pure and so steady, it would seem to glow from within rather than merely reflect. The eye, so used to the white and yellow of nearer suns, would find it strange and beautiful, a great smouldering jewel of a star hung in the dark. That colour is the visible mark of its coolness, the long warm wavelengths of a surface that has settled toward rest, and there is no more restful colour in all the spectrum than that deep evening red. A light year, that gentle ruler, also quietly teaches that to look outward is always to look backward, that distance in space is distance in time. The farther across the dark you cast your gaze, the older the light you gather, until the most distant glimmers show you the universe not as it is but as it was long ago. The whole night sky, then, is a kind of layered memory, near stars showing recent moments, far ones showing ancient ones, all of it arriving together in a single quiet view. To look up is to look into the past, gently, harmlessly, the deep history of the cosmos laid out overhead for anyone who cares to rest their eyes upon it. And so, gazing toward VY Canis Majoris, you're not seeing the star as it is tonight, but as it was 39 centuries ago, the light a long-delayed letter from a vanished moment. The star may have changed since then. It has surely breathed out more shells, dimmed and brightened many times over, perhaps even neared the threshold of its ending. But none of that news has reached us yet, and will not for ages more. What hangs in the sky is a portrait of the past, faithfully delivered, forever a little out of date. There is a softness in that, a reminder that the sky is full of echoes, that to look up is to look into a gallery of moments long gone, still glowing. If the star were to end its life this very night, or its core to give way and the great red giant to flare and collapse, you would not know for almost 4,000 years. The light of that ending would have to cross the same vast gulf, and only then, in some unimaginably distant future, would a new point of light appear in the great dog and slowly fade. The long-delayed message of an event already ancient by the time it arrived. So in a sense the star is, to us, always alive, always glowing, its ending forever held at the far end of a journey it has not yet made. There is a kind of peace in that suspended grace, an ending kept gently beyond reach. There is a particular comfort in thinking of the starlight as a letter written long ago and only now arriving, faithful across all that distance, undimmed by anything but space itself. No matter what has happened to the star in the centuries since the light set out, the message it carries has been kept perfectly intact, sealed in the vacuum, delivered at last to your eyes exactly as it was sent. The cosmos is a remarkably faithful postal service, carrying its ancient letters across the dark without losing a word, and tonight one of those letters, posted before history began, has found its way to you. There is something steadying in being the recipient of so patient and so faithful a thing. Should the great giant reach its ending in some distant age, the brilliant flare of that event would, after crossing the long gulf, appear in the skies of the far future as a new and gentle light, lingering for a time and then fading. Whoever might be looking up then would see, with no fear and no harm, a soft new star arrive among the old ones, never guessing it was the long-delayed echo of an ending that happened ages before. Even the most dramatic event such a star can produce reaches across distance, transformed into something quiet and beautiful, a gift of light to far-off watchers, an ending turned wholly into wonder by the patience of space. and the distance that softens that ending also keeps you entirely safe from it tonight, and for all the nights of any life you will ever know. The star's eventual flare, whenever it comes, lies thousands of years of travel away, and even then it would arrive only as a faint new point of light, harmless, lovely, far. Nothing about this enormous fading sun reaches toward you with any threat. Its grandeur and its ending alike are sealed away behind an abyss no danger could ever cross. You may regard the most extreme star in the heavens with perfect ease, the way you might watch a great fire burning safely on a distant hill, all its heat and fury held gently at arm's length by the night. The arcs and loops of the surrounding shroud, lit faintly from within by the buried star, would make the closest of skies extraordinary, were any world fortunate enough to drift nearby. Such a world, if it existed, would hang beneath a heaven filled not with scattered points of light, but with an enormous glowing presence, the whole sky suffused with ember-red radiance, the looping filaments of dust drawn faintly across it, like the most delicate of veils. There would be no night in the way you know night, only a perpetual deep red dusk, soft and warm and immense. Imagine resting beneath a sky like that, lit gently from everywhere, the dark itself glowing the colour of warmth. Sound cannot travel through the emptiness around the star, and so all of this immensity, all the breathing and the casting off and the long weather of the shroud, unfolds in absolute silence. The great convulsions, the flung shells, the rippling shock waves, none of it makes any noise that could ever cross the void. The largest and most dramatic events in the heavens happen without a whisper, in a stillness so complete it has no equal on Earth. The universe does its grandest work in perfect quiet. Let that great silence stand behind your own, the great noiseless dark in which even an exploding star makes no sound at all. As the star's light travels outward through the dark, it spreads itself thinner with every passing year, fanning out across an ever larger sphere of space, so that by the time it reaches the Earth, it has been diluted across an almost unthinkable expanse. This is why so titanic a furnace arrives, as the faintest of red glimmers. Its light has simply been shared out across a sphere thousands of light years wide. There is a soft justice in that spreading, the fiercest brightness gentled by distance into something the eye can bear, a furnace turned by sheer space into a candle. Distance is forever softening the harsh into the tender, the blinding into the bearable. The cold between the star and its shroud's outer edge deepens toward the great chill of open space, where the temperature falls to only a few degrees above the coldest possible, the faint residual warmth left over from the dawn of the universe itself. Out there, far from the buried ember, the dust drifts in a cold so profound it is nearly the cold of nothing at all, warmed only by the distant red glow and the ancient background hum of creation. The star is a small island of heat, in an ocean of that deep cold, its warmth fading by degrees into the universal chill. And yet even that chill is gentle, even and still, a vast quiet coldness in which the dust drifts without hurry. Across the whole spread of the light, from the visible red down through the infrared and into the radio, this star shines as a gentle giant rather than a violent one. It does not blaze in the harsh high-energy registers the way some turbulent objects do. Its character is warm and low and red, a furnace banked rather than a beacon flaring. The instruments that listen across every wavelength hear, from this star, mostly the soft long notes, the warmth and the radio murmur of its molecules, the deep bass register of the cosmos. It is, across the entire span of light, a low and restful song, the kind of sound you might fall asleep to if light could be heard. It is worth resting too in the sheer age of the light and the patience required to read it. Astronomers gather these ancient beams over many nights, building up faint signals into clear pictures, content to let understanding accumulate slowly, the way the star itself does everything slowly. There is no rushing the study of something so far away. The knowledge comes in its own time, photon by photon, year by year. The whole enterprise is an exercise in patience, in attending quietly to a faint and faraway thing until it gives up its secrets. The deepest knowing, like the deepest rest, cannot be hurried into being. This single star has become one of the most studied objects of its kind, returned to again and again by astronomers eager to understand how a sun can grow so large and shed so much and still endure. Each new instrument that turns toward it peels back another layer, refines another number, sharpens another image of its shroud, so that our portrait of it deepens with every passing decade. There is a long human relationship with this distant ember, a steady accumulation of attention reaching across generations, and it is far from finished. The star will go on rewarding careful eyes for as long as there are eyes to turn its way. Future instruments, more sensitive than any yet built, will see deeper still into that warm red shroud, mapping its loops and knots and the slow chemistry within them in ever finer detail. The star that began as a single dim mark in an old ledger will, in time, be known more intimately than ever, its every breath and arc and gradation of warmth charted across the light years. And yet, however well it comes to be known, something will always remain beyond reach, an irreducible mystery in a thing so vast and so far, and that is its own kind of gift. The grandest objects keep a little of their wonder no matter how closely we look. That balance of knowledge and mystery is part of what makes such a star restful to contemplate. Enough is understood to fill the mind with real and beautiful facts, how wide it is, how far, how red, how steadily it breathes out its shells, and enough remains unknown to leave the imagination room to wander. You can hold the true picture and still feel the awe. You can know a great deal about the star and still find it endlessly worth wondering at. There is no need to solve it, only to rest in the company of something so large and so far and so quietly magnificent, content to know what is known and to let the rest remain a mystery in the dark. The more carefully the star is measured, the more its extremity comes into focus, and the more it seems to sit right at the edge of the possible. Theories of how stars work strain to contain something this large and this unstable. It tests the very limits of what the equations allow. A star like this is a question posed to physics itself, a living experiment in just how far the rules can be stretched. And the universe, untroubled by our theories, simply goes on holding this impossible seeming object aloft in the dark, glowing red and enormous, daring the imagination to keep up. There is a freedom in encountering something that exceeds every expectation, a reminder that the cosmos is always larger than the nets we cast for it. Think of the star not as a single thing, but as a slow event, a process unfolding across millions of years, of which the glowing red sphere is only the current frame. It was once a hot blue star, fierce and compact, and over the long ages it has swelled and reddened into the hypergiant it now is, and it will go on changing still, toward its eventual end. What you see is a single moment lifted out of an enormous arc, a still frame from a film whose running time is measured in geologic epochs. Everything in the sky is like this, caught mid-transformation, frozen by the brevity of our looking. The whole universe is in motion, only on a tempo so vast it wears the perfect disguise of stillness. This great red ember began its existence as something altogether different, a fierce blue-white star, dense and brilliant and savage with heat, one of the hottest kinds of suns that form. Born from a collapsing cloud tens of times heavier than the sun, it blazed in its youth with a hard blue light, burning through its fuel at a furious pace. Only with age did it swell and cool and redden, its outer layers ballooning outward, its colour sliding down the long warm slope toward the deep red it wears now. The serene giant in the winter sky was once a hot young fury. Time has gentled it, the way time gentles so many fierce things into something slow and red and calm. To catch the star in this exact phase is a rare piece of fortune, for the red hypergiant stage is fleeting even by the brief standards of a massive star's life. A sun spends most of its existence in steadier forms. Only for a short final stretch does it bloat into this swollen, shedding, unstable grandeur. The window in which a star looks like VY Canis Majoris now is narrow, a brief late chapter, and to find a star within it is to find one passing through a doorway that does not stay open long. You're looking at a rare moment in a rare kind of star, a fleeting grandeur caught and held in the light, here for only a cosmic instant. The convulsions that built the lopsided shroud were the laboured breaths of a star walking the uneasy edge of stability, its great outer layers held only loosely against the pull of its own gravity. Now and then those layers heave, lifting and falling, sometimes flinging a great curl of material clear of the star entirely, sometimes merely shuddering. It is the behaviour of a flame guttering low, swelling and shrinking as it nears the end of its wick, except that here each gutter takes centuries and each cast-off breath becomes a glowing country of dust. The star is not dying violently but unsteadily, with long, slow heaves, like deep breathing in a profound and ancient sleep. Imagine the whole life of this star compressed into a single day, from the bright blue dawn of its birth to the deep red dusk it now inhabits. For most of that imagined day it would have shone as a fierce hot star, steady and brilliant. Only in the last hour, the late red evening, would it swell into the giant it is now, breathing out its shells, nearing its rest. It is found now in its evening, in the soft red hours before its night, when the fierce light of its noon is long past and a calm has settled over it. There is a gentleness to evening, in stars as in days, the heat of the afternoon giving way to a slower, redder, more reflective light. The elements forged in the depths of such a star, when at last they scatter, will include the very materials that make rocky worlds and living bodies possible, the carbon and oxygen and heavier atoms that the universe can make in no other way than in the hearts of stars. Every giant like this one is a small contribution to the slow enrichment of the galaxy, adding its forged elements to the common store from which new worlds are built. The ground beneath your feet, the iron in your blood, the calcium in your bones, all of it was made in stars and scattered by their endings, long ago. You're walking, breathing proof of what stars like this one quietly give back to the dark. There is a deep and restful symmetry in that giving. The star gathered itself long ago out of the scattered remains of older stars, and now it prepares, in its own time, to scatter itself again for the stars to come. It is a single turn in a wheel that has been turning since the universe was young, dust into stars, into dust into stars, the same atoms cycling endlessly through one luminous form after another. Nothing begins truly new, and nothing truly ends. It only changes shape and continues. And you are part of that turning too, a brief warm gathering of ancient dust, here for a little while, glowing softly in the dark. The dust grains the star releases will travel for ages before they find any new home, drifting through the dark at the unhurried pace of the expanding shroud, then through the wider galaxy, mingling at last with other clouds, other dust, the accumulated castings of countless other stars. In time, gathered by gravity, some of that material will collapse into new suns and new worlds, and the cycle will turn again. The atoms now drifting away from this red giant are travellers on the longest of journeys, from the heart of one star toward the heart of stars not yet born. Everything in the cosmos is on its way to becoming something else, patiently, in the fullness of an unhurried time. There is a thought to rest in as the night deepens around you. Nothing in this vast story is ever truly lost. It only changes form and continues. The star sheds its substance, and the substance becomes nebula, and the nebula becomes new clouds, and the clouds become new stars and worlds. On and on, the same handful of elements arranged and rearranged forever. Endings here are only doorways. The great red giant is not vanishing but transforming, handing its body to the future, taking its place in a cycle with no final page. And you, made of the same star-cooked atoms, are part of that endless gentle turning too. The infrared warmth of the star, the band it shines in most brightly, is the same kind of warmth a banked fire gives off after the flames have died, the deep heat you feel on your face from glowing coals. This entire star, in a sense, is glowing coals, a furnace banked low and red, radiating its warmth out into the dark in the patient way of embers. Picture yourself near a dying fire on a cold night, the room dim, the last red light pulsing softly in the grate, the warmth settling over you like a blanket. The star is that written across the heavens, a hearth glow the size of a planet's orbit warming the dark. Let that warmth reach you now, soft and red and far away. The 2 letters at the start of its name are not random but a quiet code, the kind astronomers long ago devised to mark the stars that change in brightness within a constellation. As more and more variable stars were found, the simple early labels ran out, and a system of paired letters was adopted to keep naming them, so that VY marks this one as among the variables catalogued in Canis Major. Behind that small designation lies a whole history of patient skywatchers, noticing which stars flickered and faithfully writing them down, one after another, until the letters themselves became a kind of ledger of human attention. The name is a humble thing, a bookkeeping mark, and yet it carries the memory of generations who simply watched the sky and cared enough to record what they saw. To name a star at all is a strangely tender act, a way of reaching across an unbridgeable distance to say, "You are known, you have a place in our records, we have noticed you shining." The astronomers who first marked this faint red point could not have dreamed what it would turn out to be, and yet they gave it its small, careful label and set it in the catalogue, and there it has waited ever since, its name growing more remarkable as its true nature came to light. There is something moving in that, the way a modest entry in an old ledger can come with time to name one of the grandest things in the galaxy. Across the long human history of looking upward, stars have been named and renamed, charted and recharted, sorted into pictures and catalogues and classes, each generation adding to the work of the last. The faint red giant in the great dog is woven into that long collaborative labour, one entry among the millions, and yet a singular one, a star that rewards the centuries of attention with a grandeur no early watcher suspected. To know it now is to inherit all that patient looking, to stand at the near end of a long line of upturned eyes, receiving the accumulated gift of everyone who ever bothered to write down a light in the dark. To consider how alone the star is, in its own way, is not a sad thought, but a peaceful one. It hangs in a region of the galaxy without near companions, a solitary giant breathing its slow breaths in the dark, content in its own immense quiet. It needs no other star beside it to keep shining. It does its long work entirely on its own, asking nothing, accompanied only by the shroud of its own making. There is a deep self-sufficiency in that, a star that is complete in itself, glowing alone in the night and perfectly at peace there. Solitude for a star like this is not loneliness, it is simply the room in which it does its quiet shining. From your vantage on the turning earth, the star holds almost perfectly still in its corner of the sky, its position shifting so little across a whole human lifetime that you could return to it night after night, year after year, and always find it in the same place among the stars of the great dog. It is a fixed point in a wheeling sky, a steady red marker you could navigate a life by. There is comfort in a thing so constant, a light that does not wander, always waiting in its appointed spot whenever you think to look. The star keeps its place faithfully, the same tonight as it was in childhood, the same as it will be for all the nights to come. Think of it, if it helps the mind settle, as a kind of nightlight hung far out beyond the bright stars of the Hound, a soft red glow that never goes out, watching over the dark from an unimaginable distance. It does not flicker or fade or fail. It simply burns on, steady and warm and far, the way a small lamp left on in a distant room can make a whole house feel safer in the night. The largest star known, reduced by distance to the gentlest of glimmers, a far-red nightlight for the whole of the Earth, asking nothing, giving only its quiet, constant presence in the dark. To rest beneath such a star is to be held, in a sense, by something that has been holding its vigil far longer than any human thing has existed, and will go on holding it long after. Its constancy outlasts every worry that has ever kept anyone awake. Its calm is older than every trouble. Whatever weighs on the mind tonight is a brief ripple beneath a light that has glowed serenely through the rise and fall of everything humans have ever built. Let the steadiness of so ancient and unwavering a glow lend a little of its constancy to you now, settling the restlessness, smoothing the night towards sleep. The whole of this, the size, the distance, the redness, the breathing shroud, the slow, inevitable end held far away, gathers into a single impression as the mind grows heavy, an enormous, gentle, ancient thing, glowing softly at the back of the winter sky, asking nothing, threatening nothing, simply being vast and warm and far away. It has been there through every night of your life, and it will be there through every night to come, pouring its long red warmth across the ages, indifferent and serene. There is comfort in a presence so steady, a fire that never goes out, a vastness that never comes near. You can lean the whole weight of your tiredness against the steadiness of it, and consider, at the last among these many wonders, the strangest and most tender truth of all, the one that folds the whole vast story back into the small warm dark where you are resting now. This unimaginable star, 1,400 times the width of the sun, swallowing the orbits of worlds, breathing out light years of glowing dust, near the end of a life that has run for millions of years, is made of nothing more exotic than the same elements that make up your own body. The hydrogen, the carbon, the iron, the oxygen, all of it is the common stuff of the universe, the very atoms knit into your hands and your breath and your slowing thoughts. The largest known thing and the small resting body share a single recipe. So there is, in the end, no true distance between you and that far-red ember at all, only space and time, which are the gentlest of separations. You're looking across 39 centuries of empty space at a creature made of your own substance, a vast cousin of carbon and starlight, breathing in the dark as you breathe in the dark, both of you arrangements of the same ancient dust, briefly gathered, softly glowing on your way through the night. The star will let go of its body in the fullness of time, and so, eventually will you, and all of it will return to the common cloud and be gathered up again into new light. There is nothing to fear in that, and everything to rest in. You belong to the same story the star belongs to, and the story is kind. Let one last image hold you before the mind lets go entirely. Far out beyond the bright eye of the hound, an ember the colour of deep red wine hangs in the dark, so enormous that the orbit of Saturn would fit within it, so faint from here that no eye can find it, breathing out rings of glowing dust across the centuries, so wide that its own light needs 6 full hours to travel from one side to the other. It has shone there since before the first written word, and it will shine there long after this night is forgotten, asking nothing, threatening nothing, simply being warm and red and far. A great calm fire at the back of the winter dark, keeping its long vigil while small warm creatures sleep beneath it. There is nothing in all of that vastness that needs you to do anything at all. The star does not need to be watched, or understood, or remembered. It shines on whether or not a single mind ever turns toward it. And so there is nothing you must hold on to now, no fact to keep, no number to carry, no image to grip. You are free to let all of it go, the way the star lets go of its own outer layers, easily, without loss, trusting that whatever is meant to remain will remain on its own. The knowing has done its work, now it can dissolve. And so the journey through these wonders comes to its soft landing, here in the warm dark, with the great red star still glowing far away, and nothing left now to do but rest. There is no need to hold on to any of it, not the numbers, not the names, not the shapes of the drifting shrouds. They have passed through you like warm light through water, and what was meant to stay has already settled somewhere quiet within you. The rest may go. You do not have to carry a single fact into sleep. And if you are still here, still drifting at the edge of rest, another quiet journey is already waiting nearby on the screen, ready whenever you are, or never at all, asking nothing of you tonight. There is nothing you must choose, nothing you must reach for. Let it wait. The only thing in front of you now is the slow rise and fall of your own breathing, and the soft dark and the deep warm ease spreading through your body from the crown of your head down to your resting feet. Let the thoughts grow slower. Let the pictures fade. The star is far away and perfectly safe, and you are here, and you are safe, and the night is wide and kind. There is nothing to finish. There is nothing to fix. There is only this breath, and then the next, each one a little softer than the last, each one carrying you a little deeper into rest. Your body is heavy now, and warm, and held. The room is dark. The great red ember glows on far across the dark, breathing its long light through the ages, asking nothing of you, and you may let it go. You may let everything go. Let the last thought dissolve like dust into the dark. And now, 101 wonders are resting with you. Sleep now. Good night.